think we're set. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in. Well, we're officially in the holiday season, you could call it. So we got some good deals. Check out our website. We'll be having a lot of good stuff going on from now through the rest of the year. Hope everyone's having a good start to their November. Today I'm going to show a little bit about the good old-fashioned P1 and the X1 carving a sort of a Christmas tree luminary. You may have seen like an ad or a post out there. These tools are great for luminaries if you're into that, and it's definitely the season to do it, whether it's a Christmas tree or, I mean, any kind of something that you want to put a candle in or a light. It's a lot of fun. And so I'll be using the P1 and the X1 right now. I got to remind everyone, we do have the current deal is if you buy a P1 or an X1, you get a free shrink ruler. The shrink ruler is a popular sort of fun little tool. It's a ruler, and it comes with a regular ruler, but it's a ruler that shows your shrinkage rates of pieces. So the way that works, and it's easier than what it sounds, but I'll try and describe this as simply as I can. If I have this slab built, and I built this just out of a slab, and it's made of porcelain, and porcelain has a shrinkage rate, at least the one I'm using, of 14%. So I'm going to use this green side of the ruler. So if I measure, let's say just the diameter, that's 4 inches of a 14% shrinkage. So that means after this is fired and it's shrunk completely all the way through the glaze fire, this will be a real world 4 inches. So if you look at a regular ruler, and it's translucent, but it's a little hard to see, it's bigger than 4 inches. So that's where your 14% comes from. It's really useful if, you know, the classic example is you have a cup holder, you want to make a cup that will fit in there. You will make your cup so it's, let's say, 3 inches on the shrink ruler. Then you know when you fire it, it shrinks. You're going to end up with a real world 3 inches. So it's really useful to have on hand, and it comes with a extra ruler anyway. So check that out. Yeah, they're helpful to have around. But for today, I'm going to do a little bit of carving with the P1 and the X1, maybe the X2. We'll see what we get to. I made this last week. I've kept it wrapped up. There's a number of ways to make these forms. This is just a kind of a basic cone. I slab built a bunch of these. You could also throw them. It's totally up to you. Throwing them might be, I don't even know that it's quicker. It might be easier for some folks if you're not used to slab building. I kind of wanted to try some slab built shapes, and they worked out. The only thing is you do have to spend a little bit of time on the seam to make sure it's cleaned up, and you can't tell really too much on this one. It's right there, I believe. Yeah. So you do have to spend a little bit of extra time on the seam, smoothing everything out. Throwing, you might have a little bit easier time. But what is nice about slab build is you have a lot of control over the thickness. And if you're going for a luminary where you want to carve all the way through, or just barely to the other side, you might be able to dial in the thickness a little bit better with some slab built stuff. So for this one, I used just under a 1/4 inch thickness. And so the X tools, they're not going to go through. The P1, you'll see, will be able to go through a little bit. This is a little bit dried out. It's a little firmer, but I think we'll be okay on carving. I'm just gonna start up top here and do kind of like some basic lines. So we're gonna cut fine with the X tool. And I'm gonna start by just going all the way around just to sort of set the spacing. where those fluting tools, you want them to dig in. And they seem like they go deep, but they really don't. So they're really going to be, they're not going to carve through, at least with this thickness. But when this is all set and fired and done, you put a light in there, you'll be able to see it. That's just the X1. I'm going around. Again, there's a lot of ways to sort of do these. The V-tips are really nice. They're fun to layer into all of these little triangles that you see. So I'm going to do a short little scoop right here. And the more you take your time with these, the more you are just careful about kind of where you're going in and out. You're going to get a really nice little overlap. And even if you don't want it to become a luminary, it looks really good just, sitting there anyway. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing underneath here. So keep in mind that, we have a bunch of kind of cuts going around here. As we move down, you have more space going around this cone. So you're actually going to, have more space in between each cut. So as you go, you sort of have to find a way to add more. And I'm just gonna do a short one. So what I'm trying to do is, the first one I did was a little bit longer. I'm gonna do a short up here and short here. And I just sort of add some variation, different look to it. And you'll notice that there's a little bit more spacing between each one of these as we go. So compared to here where they're kind of right up against each other, as we go down, there's going to be a little bit more spacing. So I'm going to do another short one, kind of right underneath it as well. And I do like using the fluting tool, the X1, a little bit more for this sort of thing because it feels like you actually have more control. I'll show you with the P1. The P1 is kind of a little bit trickier to use than the X1. And if anyone watching, I'm curious what you think. If you have the P1 or the X1, do you like one or the other? Is one easier to use? I've talked to a lot of folks that try the P1 and it's almost, it's a little bit harder to have control over the depth and how you're carving, whereas the X1 will just sort of work. Okay, so now we have the P1 and I'm going to do, let's see. Just for fun, I'm gonna do like a little swoop. Just like that. And so this one, I have to be careful. I really gotta sort of steady with my finger here that I don't go too deep. And you'll see later I'll carve all the way through. But if this one, if I let it keep digging in, it will go all the way through, no problem. And to be consistent on this, I'm just trying to do a little swoop and end it right in line with kind of like the next carving over. And you'll definitely get to see the difference between the P tools and the X tools. Even though these are both V-tips, you get to see how the P tool has a very sort of sharp edge. It's a very defined line, whereas the X tools, they kind of have a concave edge, so they look a lot softer. You still have a V-tip, so you still have a point. You can line everything up with those triangles, but the P1 you can see stands out quite a bit. It just has a much different look to it. And then we'll go up top. So I'm going to do a little bit longer because the P1's going to be a little bit skinnier. I'm going to do a longer line down right into the little triangle left over from the X1. Like that. And so as long as you line up, you get these nice little sort of, I don't know, crisscrosses, little zigzag. And then I'm going to do one more section like that up top. I don't want to go too far, but I'll do a little bit shorter P1. Just like this. Oh man, relaxing to watch, good. Just hang out. These are nice too, they're relaxing to make. You don't have to think too much about the design or anything. It's just, it's just basic little lines. And it's really nice the way all these little triangles line up and fit within each other. Like that. And you know what, there's a little bit more room up top, so I think it's worth going a little bit further. I'm just being careful, so I'm using the foam to protect the bottom, and I'm just gonna sort of hold that top up there. So in this case, I'm gonna worry less about trying to get every single one in. I'm just trying to kind of fill this blank space. And then when you're making these, I think it's helpful to start towards the top, kind of like this, because your tip's going to dry out pretty quick. It's been actually really dry here in San Diego this week, and so everything has been drying out really fast. Even though it's not all that warm, you can just tell the moisture's sort of wicked out of everything. So I'm not pushing in. That's one thing I've seen with the P1, especially with those curved blades, you really got to pull it down. So I'm just pulling that blade in gently. Okay. So we'll leave the top there. And then we have this. For fun, I'm gonna go to the X2. So this is gonna be just a little bit wider, and I'm gonna go in between each of these little P1 spots. So we'll do kind of a big X2 scoop. And this just has a little bit different look than the X1. You don't get that like defined, V groove down the middle. So I think it just sort of helps to break up the pattern. And I'll do one more short one in between each of those. And even though this is a little bit firmer clay, the X1 and 2 and the 3, some of those, they're totally fine on a little bit firmer clay. I think you get a much crisper cut, and you're not going to accidentally, bump some of the edges or anything. Just like that. So a little bit different look to it. And then let's go back to the P1, and I'm gonna do kind of a little Y shape here. So this one I'm being careful. I'm not gonna go as deep. So that just comes down to sort of control over the blade. I'm not gonna let it sink in, and I'm just doing a thin little outline. And that's where the P1 really, it does a good job. So the more you have control over it, the more you can do like this. Just like this. This is also my favorite process. It is, yeah, I mean, besides trimming, I do like trimming because it's a similar feeling, but this is always fun. We've got a little bit of that going around. And again, I'm just making this up, and it's, it's nothing crazy. It's just one tool. You go around and come up with another fun shape. So I think what we'll do is maybe we'll go on the inside here and kind of go back the other way. We'll do a similar shape, but sort of reversed fit in there. And just over the course of going around, I definitely inched a little bit further down here, and over here it gets a little bit higher, but it'll be okay. So then let's try the same thing, but with the X tool. So remember, as we're moving down, we have more space in between everything. So I should be able to do something similar, but with the fluting tool here. And on this one, I'm just gonna go down and straight, but I'll start in the same spot here and then kind of feather it out. And so what makes it easy to start is I'm just sort of letting that V start in that existing little groove there. Okay, so there, that kind of got me all the way to the bottom. You end up with something like this. Even this would probably look pretty nice, you know, once it dries out. There's some areas here that are a little bit thicker, so because this is a porcelain, you are able to, you know, see light a little bit better if you put like a clear glaze on there. These thicker areas you won't see as much. What I do want to try though is, so let's just say you could leave it there and be fine with it. I'm gonna try using a V-tip in the middle of each of these spots. Okay, so everything's mostly carved here. What I'm gonna try to do is use the P1, and I'm gonna go back into the grooves of some of these, like the X ones, and try to go actually all the way through. So one version is just relying on the thinness and translucentness of the clay for light to come through. The other one is actually carving through. So I'll start with up here, and I think this is thin enough, but I'm going to, and if you need to do a couple tries, you can, but I'm going to just use the P1, and it's gonna feel like a little bit deeper scoop, just like that. So even that, you're gonna get a little twinkle of light coming through. So I'm going to go around very carefully, and this is where you really don't want to be pushing much. You know, you're just letting the tool actually cut away. If you can do it in one swoop, that's, you know, a little bit best. You just don't have to worry about coming back and lining everything up. But if you need to, do a couple. And scooping out. And I kind of like going back in the X grooves themselves, because it kind of acts like a little bit of a guide to keep your blade in there. Yes, it's being recorded, so we'll post this afterwards. So you can just try carving with the P1 right away and going through, that works. But I sort of like how the X1 gives you a really nice sort of like a smoother outer groove, and then it also makes it a little bit thinner so you don't have as much material to dig out as you're going. So that's just what I've found, but definitely experiment with it. It looks different too if you just use the P1. So like here, I'm trying to get through, but I'm doing a lot of digging. So I'm trying to, I don't want to have to keep going deeper and deeper. But there we go. So as long as we get a little bit of light, that'll count. Go. And remember, when you scoop in and you got to scoop out. This is a tad on the drier side, so it's a little bit trickier. I'd recommend just not letting it sit quite this long. But the advantage of it being a little bit stiffer is I can actually hold it like this, and it's a little pretty well supported. Okay, there we go. So made it through all the way on that one, and tiny little slivers, but that's gonna look really nice with a candle in there. Yes, this is a Nara 5. It's porcelain. And then let's see. So we'll do, I think, another one right here. So we'll skip a row. We'll do one more down here. This one's a little bit shorter. The only thing about a shorter sort of scoop is you gotta get deep right in there. So this is it's gonna be like a small little hole in there. And some of these, if I'm running out of room, I'm sort of turning it a little bit to follow the flow of all those other carvings. Just like that. That one. And then I think one more down here somewhere. So we'll do one down here where I added that last little X fluting mark. Ooh. And I can feel it drying out just a little bit more, so we'll finish with this one. There we go. All right, so we'll leave her there. But we got a pretty cool design. Day before Thanksgiving, yes, we'll be open. We might take off a little bit early. Everyone wants to get home, but come by. So yeah, if you are in the San Diego area, we're open usually every day, 10 to 2. We're here. Check our Google hours, and we're usually here a little bit before and after that. So if you need to call us or email us, go for it, but we will be open that day. So here you go, fun little Christmas tree luminary. This one, you know, even with clear glaze, it'll look really cool just as is. And then if you put a little candle or a little light in there, you'll get some little twinkles coming through. And most likely all these other areas that have carving, you're gonna see a little bit of light or glow in there anyway. So we'll I'll try to get this fired in the next few weeks and show everyone. So there you have it. Thanks for joining on that one. Yeah, for anyone also in the area, we do have I think 2 more workshops open for this Friday and next Friday. Sign up. There are 2 carving workshops, so I go over all the carving tools. You get to play around with everything, and you get some tools for free, well, as part of the workshop, which you pay for. So check it out. Reminder on the promo, if you buy an X1 or a P1, either one of these, you get a free shrink ruler. So if you don't have any of those or the shrink ruler, it's a good idea to stock up on that. So other than that, I think that's it for this week, but comment and share this video if you want to see something else or some other tools. Let us know. I say it every time, but we're always looking for questions or things that people want to see. Can you take a workshop more than once? Absolutely. It's up to you. It's every workshop. I'd say it's maybe a little different depending on what people ask or kind of what we focus on. It's just a small enough group where if everyone wants to see, you know, one particular thing or one tool, we'll go for it. And if you've already taken a workshop, you can definitely take it again. You can get another, you know, batch of tools out of it, and you can ask more questions, and I'll show you more of what you want to see. So check it out. Other than that, I think we'll leave her, and thanks everyone for joining. And